The Packers started the rebound through 5 TDs, did CJ Stroud. The Raiders were great without McDaniels. Over the Jets, the Chargers trampled. And the Ravens beat Seattle into the ground. Welcome to the Mishpo. Alrighty, welcome into the Week 9 episode of the Mishpo. And as you can see, if you're watching the video, we finally have someone else on the air with me. T-Corn, welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, we definitely missed you over here. But we are back with multiple people on. Lincoln couldn't make it, but that's okay.
Baby steps. Next week
we'll hopefully get him back. So, so before we jump into fantasy stuff, of course, we've got ourselves some beer here. I got myself a Big Wave. So I will just crack that open. And also, I figured it's probably time, and Tigran, you know this, and Lincoln knows this, and a couple people in the league know this, but I figured it's probably time for me to share some news. As also, I've shared it with the appropriate parties. But Bree, if you don't know Bree, she's my wife. She's pregnant, so that'll be exciting. The baby's due in early April. But yeah, my brother had his wedding over the weekend and got to see extended family, so got to tell them in person. The likelihood that they see this video is very low, but I just wanted to make sure I covered all my bases before putting something, publicly onto the internet. So
yeah, this is breaking news. Joey, congrats.
Thank you.
You're gonna be a daddy.
Yep, finally gonna join the ranks of a couple parents in the league. So, and actually, I realized I think it was the year that State became a dad. His son was born, and then if Lincoln can pull it off this year, then because they had their kid this year, and so if Lincoln wins, then things could be looking good for me for next year, because we all know it's not looking great for me this year, unfortunately. And so there was one trade that occurred over the past week or so. Bruce traded Tony Pollard and Cortland Sutton to Caleb for Khalil Herbert, Josh Downs, and $25 fab. So I think just on the surface, I feel like Tony Pollard and Cortland Sutton are definitely probably better players than Herbert and Downs. But if you kind of look at the bigger picture of what went on with what Bruce used that fab for, and not everybody noticed this. I definitely did, and Bruce clearly did as well. Brian was his tight end was on bye this past week. And so he made the questionable decision to drop that tight end and to pick up a tight end that is playing this week, Hunter Henry, who actually did pretty decent. And that tight end he dropped was Sam Laporta, currently, I believe, the number 3 tight end on the league or on the season. So Bruce, being a savvy, manager, got a couple of, some extra fab. Because you want to. I definitely would. I only had $9 fab, and I would have been willing to spend it all on Sam Laporta. And Bruce, I think, ended up spending $83 on him. Some of that money coming from that trade. So, in the grand scheme of things, I would probably, I don't know, it's probably pretty even. Maybe favoring Bruce, because Khalil Herbert's coming back. We'll see how well he does when he returns, and then I am a bit uneducated on how well Josh Downs has been this season. I believe he's done decent, but I just don't have his numbers in front of me at the moment.
He's done pretty decent this year. I think when I see this trade, I think for Bruce, I don't know where is Bruce. He just scored the highest points this week, so like I view that
Yep.
trade as like for Bruce. I almost kind of see it as like a future guy that
Mhm.
he's going to be able to use one of his keepers on. I don't know. I mean, Herbert's going to be nice when he gets back,
Yep.
but I think out of Pollard and Herbert, I'd rather have Pollard.
Yeah.
And out of Downs and Sutton, I mean, I'd probably
Josh.
rather have Sutton.
Yeah, I
If
pulled it up. Josh Downs, he is the number 32 wide receiver on the season so far. So actually
Mhm.
pretty solid. Better than probably what I would think. And I believe Sutton is
Yeah,
probably a little bit better than that.
he is. He's number
28.
28.
So I mean, if you're just going off that, obviously, Downs is a bit worse, but I mean, it's pretty close.
Like I said, when I'm looking at things like that, I think for Bruce, probably his mindset is Downs is a rookie that's
Yep.
performing well, and the sky's the limit for this guy, and he's a possible keeper for next year and can just continue to improve. And then, I mean, so I do like the trade for Caleb holistically. Uh, but honestly, after Bruce was able to get Sam Laporta with that extra fab,
Yeah.
I know, obviously Brian has to drop Laporta for that to happen to Bruce, but I mean, Bruce doesn't make that trade. He doesn't have that extra fab. So,
Right.
I mean, realistically, just because of that, I think then Bruce doesn't necessarily win this individual trade, but kind of like long term wins that aspect of it.
Yeah, I'd say so. So, I mean, we'll just call it pretty even. I think in this trade, the better players are on Caleb's team overall,
Mhm.
especially if Tony Pollard can, kind of pick it up. He's been kind of playing not as well lately. Um, and, we don't know what Herbert's going to do when he comes back. It's a high ankle sprain, I believe. And, the Bears have, they're a bit of a different team than when he was playing before he got hurt. But yeah, pretty good trade overall for both teams, I would say.
Yep,
So,
I'd agree.
alrighty. So now we will pop into the last week's matchups. First one was me versus Brian. Don't have to talk about it too much. We both did pretty good. Brian did slightly better. I know I could have made, a couple different start sit decisions that would have gotten me the win. But that's just how it goes sometimes. And it was a bummer that I did have Christian McCaffrey on by. He definitely probably would have put me over the top had he played. But yeah, Brian got the win here. So my season is very close to being over, I would say, depending on how this next week goes for me. Um, I might be, be getting to sell some of my players. So yeah. And he did have some down weeks from some guys that you expect to have good weeks, like Kamara and Adams. Um, so, if there was a week for me to, do well and beat Brian, then this was it. But not in the cards, unfortunately for me.
Just how it goes.
Yep. Yep. So the next matchup is a bit, bit of a higher point differential here. Bruce versus Lincoln. Um, I mean, Bruce really. I mean, he actually, believe it or not, with Jalen Hurts 24.88, didn't even start the best quarterback on his team. If he would have started Stroud, he would have passed 200 points.
Well past it. That would have been crazy.
He's got that's got to be up there for highest points scored in the league ever. Granted, we didn't always have two flexes, but still, you know, 200 points is pretty good.
Yeah, that's scary high. His lowest scoring guy was 10.5 points. Most teams you'd be, oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
That's Bruce's worst guy.
Yeah, and it's crazy. His defense almost got 30, and then I mean, to have six guys over 20 points is pretty
Yeah.
insane. And Lincoln had a heck of a week too. He had 122.56, so that's really, really solid performance. But I mean, Bruce, yeah, just absolutely went off. So not much you can do about this if you're Lincoln, but he still put out a good performance. So nothing really to feel too bad about. Still, I believe, still in the playoffs, or at least in the hunt for Lincoln. So yeah. Next matchup was a lot lower scoring, and it came down to Monday night, I believe, for UT Corn.
Yep.
With Brees Hall and Justin Herbert, you just needed what, 30-ish, 25 points.
I needed, about just under 30.
So I mean, you would just you'd expect to get there, but it was a funky game. Herbert did not play very well. No touchdowns for him. And Brees didn't do great as well. So just wasn't in the cards for you this week. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, outside of CeeDee Lamb, my team didn't really show up. So I think CeeDee Lamb scored about 40% of my points, and everybody else was just below double digits or lower. So yeah, it was a tough week. I had a couple guys on bye. I mean, Fiala did too. So I mean, I went from a high scoring week to a really low scoring week. So can't do that.
Yep, that'll happen. But I mean, you're obviously still looking pretty good, 6-3 on the season. Pretty much a lock, I would say, for playoffs, or pretty close to.
Pretty close. I wouldn't quite say that yet. I think we got a lot of weeks left and a lot of teams that are, kind of sniffing the playoffs and just looking for my points scored compared to a lot of other teams. I am not quite in that space yet, but I think a couple more wins will solidify that for me.
For sure. All right, next matchup. With how different these two teams' records are, it's a bit surprising how close the matchup was. That is Michael versus Sam. A combined 10 wins between the two, and Michael has 9 of them. But yeah, pretty low scoring matchup here. Michael had the win just barely, but pretty Rashad White, if he would have been on my team, I would have won. But Ramondre Stevenson had that really nice touchdown. Things haven't been looking great for Walker the last couple of weeks, so hopefully he can rebound from Michael. Gabe Davis, again, has he goose egg before the season too? Oh, pretty close a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
but
he's touchdown dependent. He's TD Gabe,
Yeah. Yep, and he's had a lot of them this season, so that's why he's been pretty good. But yeah,
can we talk about the opposite side for a second? On Sam's side, Mike Thomas putting up a goose egg. That's rough.
Yeah, dang.
That is rough. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the season, but putting a second round pick on the line for a guy, he's wide receiver 45 right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all going to Taysom in that offense right now, or at least this past week. Usually Kamara gets his as well, but not so much this week. But yeah, Taysom, he's I think a top 12 tight end the last 4 weeks, and like top 5 the last 3 or something like that. So he's been playing really well, and it's he's doing it all kinds of ways, throwing, rushing, and catching. So interesting stuff for that guy. Next matchup, another pretty low scoring matchup, including, I believe, the lowest scoring team on the week. Yep. Caleb versus Colin. Yeah, I mean, just some pretty poor performances. Bijan, for some reason, is not as involved as he should be. I didn't watch the game, but I heard that when they were on the goal line, instead of doing a Bijan run up the middle, which would have almost a pretty good chances, I feel like they score there. They did a jet sweep with Jonnu. So pretty interesting coaching going on in Atlanta. But yeah, just kind of across the board, not that great of scores. But someone's got to. Actually, Cole Kmet did do pretty well. 23.5 points for him. So pretty good stuff from him. But I mean, other than that, and Eckler, 21 from him. But between those two players, that's about half the points for Collins. So not too great, but Collins did get the victory here. So good for him. Definitely still in the playoff hunt. So anything you'd like to add about this one, T-Corn?
No, I think you hit everything. I mean, yeah, Collins stays in the playoff hunt. I'm a little questionable on his team if he can make that push or not. I think the key is going to be his receivers. If they keep performing, he's got a really good shot. If they, do what they did this week and he's not putting up big points like that, he's going to have a hard time getting more wins.
Yeah. Now that Will Levis is throwing the ball over there in Tennessee, maybe DeAndre will start doing better. Last couple weeks have been, he started off pretty rough, but then he went off obviously last week, and then this past week a bit back down to normal. But we'll see if he can keep that connection going with Will Levis. So
yeah.
Next matchup, pretty close, pretty high scoring. Adam versus State Farm. Again, two teams that are right in there for the playoffs. I believe Adam is currently in the playoffs. I'm not sure.
He is. Yeah, he'd be the last team current state.
Yeah, so pretty good scores here for both teams. But State was just barely able to eke out the victory. Just pretty solid stuff. Jahan Dotson is finally performing like I'm sure State Farm and a lot of people were expecting him to do this season. Let's see, the last couple of weeks have been pretty good for him. His best 2 weeks on the season by a decent margin, 12.7 in week 4. But besides that, it's been under 10 every other week. But the last 2 weeks, he's been 24.8, 16.9. So maybe he's finally got that connection with Sam Howell. We'll see if he can keep that going. So,
Cade Otton too, going off for 22. He's a number 3 tight end of the week. That's big, So
and the aforementioned Taysom Hill, 20.62, had a 1 passing touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown, also adding 52 yards on 11 carries. So he really is Mr. Do-It-All, as Adam has him nicknamed. So.
And he had Jonnu on the bench too. So he had 2 tight ends that put up 20 points this week. That's freaking crazy.
Man, might have to start double flex on the tight ends. I mean, if they keep getting that kind of usage.
I mean, Jonnu's so hit or miss though with Kyle Pitts. He just had a good week.
I mean, he's been doing pretty good last 2 weeks weren't great, but he's had his weeks. Tight end 11 on the season.
Yeah.
So, just
true.
If he'll have a fine week, but then if he gets in the end zone, he'll have a pretty great week. So, so that was that matchup. And then the final matchup was Abby versus Matt, another very close matchup. And unfortunately, Matt still could not come away with the victory here. Abby beat him by just about 4 points. So lots of fairly close matchups this week. Not much to say. Deonta Foreman's usage may be coming to an end with Khalil Herbert coming back. I believe this week is he's expected to retake the field.
Started practicing yesterday, but it looked like it was non-contact or pad, so we'll see.
Yeah. Mark Andrews, another tight end who did pretty good, 17 points for him. Joe Mixon found the end zone, so he got pretty good score right there, 17.8. Just pretty close stuff here. Let's see if Matt could have maybe he probably started the best roster he could. Definitely. So, again, just like one of those weeks. Just didn't have it in the cards. Pacheco was very much held in check. Same with Puka. I mean, also that was kind of a side effect from having your quarterback be Brett Rippon. So not really sure if that's on Puka or him. Probably more Rippon, but maybe Carson Wentz, newly signed. I'm not sure if you saw that, but maybe Carson Wentz can turn things around for him.
Yeah, I think Matt just had a couple key guys on bye that that hurt him a little bit, and then
Yep,
a couple injuries to players, not even
for sure.
is that impacted other guys that I think kind of caused this. So he just there's just sometimes where it's just not your year, and I think it's apparent that this year is just not Matt's year.
Yep,
Um, he definitely had a good team. It wasn't from lack of effort. It was just more from just a lack of just luck on a
luck.
week to week basis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at least he started the right um, Baltimore running back. So,
yeah.
alrighty, so yeah, that'll do it for the week 9 matchups, and then we will jump into week 10. But first, I will run through the power rankings. At 14, we have Sam, 13, Matt, 12, Caleb, 11, Colin, 10, Abby, 9, State, Brian, 8, 11 or 7, Lincoln, 6, Joey, 5, Adam, 4, Fiala, 3, Bruce, 2, Tikron, and 1, of course, Michael's still undefeated.
Wow, I'm honored, Joey.
Of course. Moving on to this week's matchups. First up, Lincoln is not here, but I am facing him this week. And I did write down in my notes all the matchups, all the winners I need to kind of keep the season going. And of course, it starts with me winning my matchup. I get CMC back. I currently don't have him in my lineup, but don't worry, he will be playing for me. I have not forgotten about him. I will have to get a new defense, but that's not a huge deal. But over for Lincoln, he has Devonta Smith on bye this week. He's already made that change in his lineup, and that appears to be it for him. I've been, right when I got James Cook in the trade, he went off for about 20 points and sick. But the last couple weeks since then, he's been kind of disappointing, only 8.3 and 7.9. So I'm a little bit concerned about him, especially now that Leonard Fournette is there. But I feel like my other running backs in Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey can kind of make up for what he's lacking potentially. Also, Zay Flowers hasn't been doing super great lately. Only the one target this past week. And it's been not great. He had 3 straight weeks of triple digits, and then now he's on 2 straight weeks of below 7 points. So hoping he can kind of rebound for me. But, I mean, other than that, I feel pretty good about my team. With Kirk being injured, questions were going to arise about Hawkinson, but with Josh Dobbs there now, I feel pretty good about how he can be going forward. Obviously not not quite as much usage that he saw when Kirk was there, but still, I mean, quite happy with his performance. And just another week. I mean, Josh Dobbs barely was on the team when he played, so I'm sure it'll just get even better for him. Hopefully in this next week. But yeah, other than that, I feel pretty solid, I think, about my team. Like my chances. Projections aren't everything, but I'm currently favored without a defense and Christian McCaffrey in my lineup. So that's got to be, that's a little bit comforting for me. But, I've lost so many times, I kind of stopped paying attention to that stuff. So, I mean, Lincoln, there are solid players. Obviously, Lincoln's team as well. Dak has been doing really well lately. Thielen, of course. Garrett Wilson's very solid. Kincaid has recently picked up a bigger role over there in Buffalo, so a little bit nervous about him. And then I think Nico has been pretty great lately. Last week wasn't the best, but he's been good over the course of the season. Have definitely a chance to go off. So I'm going to pick myself. Um, obviously, but I really do think I can pull this one out. So, Tico, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think my biggest call out on Lincoln's team, I think I like his receivers a lot. Thielen, Wilson, Nico, all really good guys this year. Looks like they have some good matchups this week too, so I like that
Yep.
end. Where I get a little bit concerned though is the running backs. Najee's been decent this year, but Jalen Warren's been a kind of a thorn in his side and is taking some valuable carries away from him. So I just kind of question that. I know Green Bay has been a little suspect to the run,
Mm-hmm.
so he could have a big week. So I think that's going to be a key success factor for Lincoln. And then also Zach Moss. He's been on the decline with his carries. So I really think that he's going to be a non factor. And I don't, outside of either Zeke or AJ Dillon, don't really know. I mean, I could give you reasons why those guys aren't going to be great either. So he's got some decisions to make there. One of those
Mm-hmm.
guys will probably pop off this week, but you got to make the decision of which one is that going to be. So I think that's going to be a big factor on the outcome of this game. Joey, I think really your team. You have the advantage with the players and the projections. So I think really for your end, it's comes down to your players just performing to their expectations, and they don't have to exceed expectations. I think Lincoln's side does, but I think as long as your guys just do what they should do, you'll easily win. I think you know at that point, I'm definitely going to pick you. I think you have some tougher matchups with your receivers, so that'll be intriguing to see because I could see some of your receivers there having lower projections than what are portrayed right now. But I think your running backs are just too good, and also if you get Justin Fields back this week too.
Yeah, he
Um,
could give it a go. It is going to be, they do play Thursday, so luckily I will know sooner rather than later. But he's been limited, I think, the last couple of practices, so obviously would like to get him back in the lineup here. So
Yeah, I like your squad because of that. I think you got the more talent. I could see Lincoln winning. I just think that a lot more has to go in his favor to do so from a managing side, and then just his players like actually performing past expectation.
yeah, yep. Alrighty, next matchup: Michael versus Colin. Um, with buys, I see already Tyreek Hill is going to be missing from Michael, and then Stafford's injured, so not sure if he would have played him. But that's it for buys. He is getting Amon Ra back and Ayuk, so that's pretty good for Michael. And then over on Colin's side, um, it looks like the only buy player is Jarek McKinnon, so I'm not quite sure if he would have cracked the lineup. So pretty unaffected by buys um, for for Colin here. So um, we'll just prognosticate. Tyreek is on bye, so he will not be starting. I assume, obviously, Brandon Ayuk or Amon Ra, but then I'm sure the other one will just find his way into the flex here in
Yeah, he's
place of,
got Crowder in his flex, so I think the other guy will just go in his flex. He's going to start both those guys no matter what.
and I'm sure he'd
Yeah.
probably even put Judy in over Shakir, maybe.
Who
So,
knows? I think, yeah, I think he probably has some time to figure that out because both of them play Monday night. So I, knowing Michael, I mean, at least I know what I would do in that situation. You have either one. I
yep.
think whatever one you have the safer floor with, that's who you pick, just depending on the type of hole that you're in. If you're in one, because honestly, he might already have the game won at
I
that
was gonna
point.
say Collins. He doesn't have any Monday night players, so well, I guess he's got Leonard Fournette. Not quite sure if he. I wouldn't throw him out there first week. I'm not confident enough for that, but
No,
so yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It could just be decided by Monday night or by the end of Sunday, and it doesn't matter who he starts. But for Collins here, we've got D Hop, who's kind of got a second breath or second what's the word? Second second wind this season with the new
yeah,
quarterback DK. I think he's not been super great. the last couple of weeks. Missed the 1 week and then not great, especially week 9 against Baltimore. Granted, that is a tougher team. Cole Kmet had his good game, and we'll see Jacoby Meyer's new coaching staff. Had a decent game, so we'll see if that can keep going. It is going to be against the Jets, who, they do have pretty solid corners and defense just overall. And speaking of new quarterbacks, Kyler is expected to return this week, from what I hear. So Hollywood could get a bump there, and Cleveland is a tough defense, so that could be some tough stuff for Lamar.
I think, my opinion here, I think both teams are really good. I think it's a huge hit when you have the number one receiver on bye. And I think if there's going to be a week right now where Michael's going to lose, it's going to be this week.
Yep.
This team's just been performing so well. I'm not saying that I don't think he's going to lose because he's got so many good matchups with his players. I have such a hard time picking against him. But I think I want to lean towards the upset on Colin just because I think, with Tyreek being out, it weakens his lineup a little bit. I still think this is going to be I think based off the projections, I know Michael's got to tweak his lineup a little bit, but I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week. I think both teams will put up over 125 points.
Dang, that's quite the prediction. I'm not sure if I'm going to go that bold with the points there, but I do think there's definitely more upside. I think with Collins players, with Lamar, Hollywood getting Kyler, Eckler's been doing really well the last couple of weeks. These guys that in the tight end and the flex have shown they can go off in the past. I think it'll be Colin. That would kind of go against my master plan, so I hope Michael wins. But I think it'll be Colin this week. Yeah, it's just tough when it's either number one, not even receiver, but just player on the season. So yeah, pretty rough when some of these scores are just ridiculous.
And that's how he's won some of those weeks too. But I mean, again, it's a collective effort. He's got an all-around really good team. Like I said, if there's going to be a week this season that I feel like he's going to lose now, it's going to be this. Because after this, Tyreek and Amon-Ra are done with their buys. He gets, he'll have, what's his name from the Cardinals back in a couple weeks, James Conner. I just think at that point he's just going to be too strong to beat. So if he's going to lose, it'll be this week.
Yeah. I mean, also not like it really matters for him. He's pretty locked in. So
yeah, 100%.
It's a pretty nice place to be for him. So should be a good matchup. Next one is Abby versus Bruce. Based off the projections, I could tell we got some buys on our hands here. Both starting quarterbacks, Tua and Jalen Hurts, are going to be on bye, so it's a bit of a wash there. Scrolling down a bit, we got Rashee Rice over there for Abby on bye. And then Royce Freeman, probably wouldn't have played him. He's on bye. And then over for Bruce, gets Sam Laporta back from bye. Probably will. Well, obviously he's going to roll out CJ Stroud, so that should be pretty good for Bruce's lineup. Do you think he probably will go Laporta over Schultz?
Yeah, I think he's got to. I just think that Laporta is such a big piece of Detroit's offense right now. As far as with how many targets he's been getting a week, he's got double-digit targets 5 out of the last 8 weeks. So, I mean, you gotta.
Yep. Yep. And Aaron Jones has been, well, at least this last week, he, showed signs of life, looked to be, healthy again. So that's good for him. Good for Packer fans. So he's probably going to keep on rolling, hopefully. Yeah, I'm just gonna. I have to go Bruce here. He went up. He went off last week, and he probably won't go as high as he did last week, but I mean, he's got a very solid team here.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I mean, I think Gabby's team is pretty decent, but I'm a little concerned about our RB2 spot and then our flex spot, and putting anybody. Well, unless Debo plays this week, of course,
mm,
putting anybody that's going to be helpful in those. And I think Bruce has just got a lot of guys that are having career years right now, with guys like Ford, Tank Dell, Demario Douglas, just some unknown guys on his team that are,
mm-hmm.
performing decent and hitting good points each week. So, yeah, Bruce all day.
Yep, yep. And if you're curious at home, it would be beneficial the most for me if Abby lost. I think maybe not. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to catch both of them, so it doesn't really matter. But
Horse apiece.
yeah, I guess Bruce is farther ahead, so I guess I'd probably prefer Bruce to win. So anyway, Fiala versus Brian. Um, we've got Daryl Henderson over there for Fiala on by Travis Kelsey on by, and that's it for him. And for Brian, he's got Clyde. I'm not sure if he would have played him, and that's about it. So this one I feel like might be pretty close. For Daryl, I assume he'd probably go Roshan. Oh, actually, just kidding. He'd go Travis Etienne. What am I saying? Um, but he and then Jawan Johnson for tight end. He did decent. Oh, I thought. Oh, wait there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He did pretty good. Caught that touchdown from Taysom Hill. Without that, he would have had a kind of a meh game. But with again going up against Minnesota should be potentially a shootout in that matchup, as that is not a great defense. Kind of taking indication from last week as they played Atlanta and Minnesota, and that was a pretty high scoring game. So Juwan isn't a terrible option for tight end. But with all that said, I feel like pretty close. But I think I'm gonna go Brian here. I think Kamara is gonna get a lot more usage than he did last week. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think I'm looking at it and I see, Fiala getting ETN back this week and how good he's been this year. Kareem Hunt's been getting a little bit more involved in the offense, so he's, been averaging a decent amount each week. And then I think you'll see guys like Olave start to ramp things up too. Um, I I think this is going to be one of the closer matchups of the week, but I see Fiala sneaking out a win.
Mm-hmm.
I like Brian's team, but there's just a couple guys that, I'm more focused on his flex spots. I don't know how they're going to perform. I
Yeah.
just like
Yep.
Fiala's kind of his top tier guys a little bit more this week.
Yeah. I mean, Odell did get 7 targets and the touchdown, but
Hmm.
we'll see how that'll go against Cleveland, who is a very good defense. So.
Yeah, I think some of Brian's matchups are going to be a little bit tougher this week. When I
Mhm.
look at like Devontae and Odell, where I just think that they're going to have a tougher time of scoring, and then I look at Pittman and Olave, they're green, man. They got some good matchups, so I think they're going to outscore those two guys on Brian's end.
Yep, for sure. Should be good. I feel like we've got a lot of good matchups this week so
Hmm.
far.
Agreed.
Ooh, speaking of another good one, Matt versus Sam, the battle of the two one-win teams.
Yeah,
Um, over here for Sam, Patrick Mahomes on by,
that's going to be a
and
tough one.
Sky Moore on by, and then for Matt, we've got Puka Nakua, Isaiah Pacheco, and that's it. So he's already made the lineup changes. It does appear. Um, I mean, we've kind of they're both 1 and 8, but I mean, I think we all kind of know how we feel about these teams, or at least how I feel. I think Matt is definitely one of the best teams in terms of
Yeah.
roster in the league. He's just been awful slightly unlucky. With injuries, he's kind of missing a few guys. Bye week this week, definitely not helping here with Puka on bye and Pacheco. I mean, I think Matt finally gets his second win of the season here. I would be absolutely kind of flabbergasted, not gonna lie, if he lost here. I mean, it could definitely happen, but I mean, Sam, he's gonna have to pick up a quarterback.
Yeah.
I think Matt's finally gonna get something to go his way this season and pull off a victory here. And we didn't mention, but Trevor Lawrence is coming off by, Javonte Williams is coming off by, Evan Ingram's coming off by. So not only, I mean, he's losing a couple guys to buy, but also getting 3 guys back from buy who are kind of cornerstones to his lineup here. So
Yeah, I think Matt's in a good spot for next year. And also too, I think he's in a good spot to really he's gonna miss the playoffs, but I think his team is one of those that I would view as not in contention of a Sacco. I just
for
think
sure.
unless he makes some more trades to sell more people away, but I think he's made a few trades to put himself in a good position next year, but also put himself in a position where he's not going to be the worst. Which I think you kind of want to balance that because you don't necessarily want to be the worst of the worst, but
Right.
if you know you're not going to make the playoffs, you want to set yourself up for next year. So
Yep.
I think his team is a lot in a better position than what Sam's team is, and yeah, I think he gets his second one as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Sam has good players. T had a really good game last week. Rashad White has been doing pretty good lately. I mean,
Yeah, Sam doesn't have a bad team. It's just that
but
when you're looking at the other teams around the league and comparing, I think Sam's got some really good like players as far as like name recognition. They just aren't guys that they're kind of almost like guys that just are not performing to what their like name value expectations are.
right. Yep. Alrighty. Moving on to our penultimate matchup of the week: T-Corn, you versus Adam. Um, maybe Montgomery's gonna be back. Adam currently has him in his lineup. We'll see if that comes to fruition here.
I really hope he doesn't because having Gibbs on the opposite end really
yeah.
really would help. So
Yep. He does have Mostert on bye, which is good because he's been obviously pretty solid over the course of the season. Also, AJ Brown on bye. So pretty good for you there, T-Corn. You do have
yeah,
Cooper Cup. So not great, except for if you would have had to deal with another week of Brett Burpin, there might be a blessing in disguise. You'd have to bench him this week. So,
yeah,
but other than that, I mean, you have Jeff Wilson, but I don't think you would have been starting him anyway.
no,
But you got Kirk back from bye, Gibbs back from bye. So, yeah, I think you probably got this here. Should be a good one. I'm also rooting for you. As mentioned, I kind of went through each matchup and just figured out who I needed to win in order for me to kind of keep a chance here, and determined you needed to win for me to keep my playoff hopes alive. So I'm hoping you can pull through for me there.
I'll try. I'll try my best. Yeah,
Perfect.
I like I like a lot of my matchups this week, especially with my running backs and then my top 2 receivers. I think the only question mark that I'm a little concerned about is just my flex spots, just because those pieces are kind of hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
But realistically, I think you kind of have the same questions with Adam's side, and I like my top guys a little bit more than his, especially on the receiver side. Running backs, I think you could probably say are about a wash, especially if Montgomery does play. Um, so, I mean, yeah, I'm going to give the edge to me. I'm always going to pick myself no matter what. So, yeah, I got
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah, and I feel like honestly Herbert may even have a tougher matchup here. Detroit's defense is pretty solid.
Yeah.
We kind of saw what he did against a solid defense this past week against the Jets, and it was not great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just that, Kansas City also has a pretty good defense, and he only scored 12. So it seems like if there's a good defense, Herbert isn't the best. So that he may struggle a little bit against Detroit, but, I expect him to have a better performance probably than the Jets matchup. But he definitely is someone that is not guaranteed to have a good matchup or a good output this week. So
Right.
you could kind of say the same thing about Jacobs. However, Eckler did do really well against the Jets, as Jacobs is going up against the Jets this week. So should be a good matchup. Hoping T-Corn wins, and I do, I ultimately think you will win. So that'll move us on to the last matchup of the week. Caleb versus State Farm, and State Farm appears to have not changed his team name yet. It'll be very curious to see how he plays off Caleb's name here.
Same.
But Dallas Goddard over here for Caleb on by. Also, I believe, is he on IR or is he is he officially on IR? I'm not sure, but he's going to be out for some time, as he had surgery on Monday, fractured forearm, so he'll be out for a while.
Ooh, yeah, that's rough.
Kenneth Gainwell has been on bye, and the Eagles defense on bye. Of course, all three are on the same team. And then Tyler Higbee also on bye for Caleb over on stateside. Tutu Atwell, Jalen Waddle, DeAndre Swift on bye. Already had made the changes to his lineup. So this is, well, except for, I guess Caleb does have a little bit of work to do lineup wise. He was going to have to get a new tight end for this week. Both are on bye, so that's unfortunate, as well as the defense. But in terms of that flex, I don't even know he'd play. Probably Cortland Sutton, but the options aren't super great. So, and then so we got Ridley coming back from bye over here for State. I believe that's it for players coming back from bye. Kittle, so that's a pretty important player. And Madison this week, I think he should do a bit better than he did last week. Now with Cam Akers out for the season, tearing his other Achilles, he's got to be done for, career wise. You think, with having his second Achilles injury on the other leg. So, Joe Burrow had a good performance. I feel like that might be a fun game. Houston versus Cincinnati shootout potentially. This looks like it could be a pretty close game. Obviously, Caleb needs to fill in his roster here, but I really like the upside. Both teams have good upside. Man, it's really tough to just with three spots not filled in to determine how well that team is going to do overall. But just based off of what we got here,
I mean, Joey, I can give you my thoughts. I know who I want to lean towards.
Who's that?
I'm going to pick State Farm in this one. And the reason why, I'm just looking at Caleb's bench spots, and I just don't really love the guys that he has on his bench from a production standpoint. And I just think that he's going to have a hard time fielding a lineup comparable to State Farm's this week. He could very well likely win because he's got a lot of guys that could be like boom guys that go off, and that's how he wins. And then, just from State standpoint, he's just got a lot of, good talent through and through that I think will help him win.
Yeah, like mentioned the bench for Caleb, not great, but you're right. The guys he does have, Bijan could absolutely go off. Pollard has done it. Jamar Chase and Mike Evans have done it, but I mean other than that, I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of his team did way underperforming. I mean, those guys could way underperform too. We've seen it from just
Yeah.
about every one of them. But yeah, State definitely has some players. Yeah, it's a pretty good call there. I you know, yeah.
Also, too, Jamar Chase right now is questionable. He's day to day with an injury, so
He did, yeah, landed pretty awkwardly on his back.
that
So
concerns me a little bit because he could be limited in that matchup. Also, too, if they end up getting up big against Houston or getting down on Houston, who knows? He might then just not play as much. I don't know. It
true.
concerns me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And both teams, like most teams, I feel like definitely in the hunt for the playoffs. Both 4 and 5 are probably about a game out for both of them. I did, in my grand scheme of things, pick Caleb just because he's got less points scored than State. It's not I think I've got more points than both of them scored, so it's not like it matters. Huge deal, but just if you're keeping track at home. Yeah, but I do think State's going to win. Should be a good one. Should be a fun week of matchups here. A lot on the line for a lot of teams. I feel like we're reaching Matt's already kind of made that decision. Sam's already made that decision that this just isn't their year. Obviously, the further into the season we go, the more teams are going to start feeling like that. And so this definitely, I feel like, could be a big week when it comes to other teams deciding to bow out and start selling. So, including yours truly. I know T-Corn, we won't reveal any trade secrets here, but, there's been an offer made for some players. We'll just say that.
Live trade? You want to make a live trade?
Not this week, maybe next week.
All right. We do have the trade deadline coming up, just so everybody knows, week 11.
Yep. So yeah, it'll be, I believe, which is next week, I think, right?
Yep, it would be so it's the end of week 11. So the very last game of week 11, so that Monday night game, once that's done, the trades, boom,
Will
done.
not go through. Yeah. So
through.
what is that? Let's see. What is that game?
We'd be looking at the 20th.
So the Philadelphia Kansas City game. Oh yeah. So Philadelphia Kansas City. Once that game, the Super Bowl rematch. So once that game, November 20th at 7:15 p.m. Once that Central Time. Once that game, once the clock on that game strikes 0, no more trades will go through. So I expect over the next couple weeks there'll be lots of big name players potentially changing hands, changing managers. So should be exciting. We're gonna definitely, I feel like, see some strong teams get stronger. And some weaker teams get a bit weaker. So should be fun. Hoping my team gets better, but I am definitely accepting the fact and open to the idea of selling some players because I feel like I've got some pretty good ones and they can definitely get a lot of trade value. So
I would agree. Hence why I sent you a trade.
Yep. Alrighty. So that'll do it about for this week's episode of the Mishpo. Any final words, T-Corn?
No, good luck, everybody. May the odds be in your favor, especially you, Daddy. I can't wait to get to play against Daddy.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Good luck to everybody except for Lincoln and the others that I said I hope they lose. So with that, thank you and thank you.